Good Tuesday evening, everybody. Chris McDonald with you. We're glad to have you back on our Tuesday night McFiles on the E-Network and our Facebook audience and also our Twitter handlers. And good to see everybody tonight. Lo and behold, we've got a dear friend back with us tonight and short notice, and we're grateful that the one and only Jennifer Harrison, Victims' Right Reform Council, she's now the president of that. And we're grateful to have her. We got a lot to talk about tonight. It's good to see you tonight, friend. It's been a while, and thank you for coming in last minute, and thank you so much for being with us tonight on this Tuesday night. We're grateful to have you, buddy.
Thank you for having me. And sorry, it's executive director. I just don't want to take somebody else's title and get in trouble.
That's okay. You get in trouble every time you come on my show, Harrison. I just wanted to
get in a lot of trouble.
I just wanted you to get started off early, getting in trouble. That way, it sets the tone for the whole show. That no matter what you say now. You know, you're just right at home. I mean, we both get in trouble here on the McFiles.org. We're grateful that you're here. Executive Director, yes, I'm sorry. I'm sorry to the president out there for taking your thunder. But she's a great gal. Hey, buddy, listen, good to see you. I want you to talk about the little new position you've got, if you don't mind. Tell us a little bit about this great organization. Look, people know you, that you've been on our show before, and for those that don't know Jennifer, she's always been fighting for victims' rights. We're going to be talking some legal stuff with her tonight, some justice stuff, and the country. But you have been a very hard advocate for those in New York and other parts of the country that are facing abuse through different things. And I have to tell you, what happened in y'all state, Jen, with these nursing homes was beyond pathetic. It was so – I don't think I'd ever seen anything – on a scale like that, government-wise, where people were literally killed by our government, elderly. It reminded me, I hate to use this analogy, I really do, because there's really nothing that can compare to Nazi Germany of 1939. But if there was ever anything where, and I don't know if people know this or not, the Nazis euthanized the elderly before they started euthanizing the Jews. They started doing this. They started killing the two classes of people, the young and the old, but they started with the old. I can't remember anything in my recent memory that resembled that, like what happened in your state with Cuomo under this administration that was there. And this lady that's in power ain't much better. But tell everybody about Victims' Right Reform Council, because it's doing basically the same thing, basically, but it's just a different kind of outreach, correct?
Right. Well, I'm also, some of you may remember that I am the founder of the Victims' Rights New York organization, which is a political action committee, because victims haven't had a voice in government or politics for so long. So a political action committee is completely different from a nonprofit. The Victims' Rights Reform Council is a 501c3 registered organization. It's a nonprofit. And we're not allowed to be political. We're allowed to lobby for legislation and, advocate for our issues, but it's not a political organization in any way, shape, or form. So I'll be able to do a lot more through this organization and my partners in this organization for victims, and providing support, connecting them with resources, lobbying for legislation, lobbying for funding. We'll be able to address issues that actually drive violent crime so that we can prevent victimization, such as homelessness, mental health, education, poverty. I'm actually very involved in calling out a lot of the hypocrisy that we saw today regarding gun legislation, and all of these anti-gun advocates want more legislation that's on the books, but we're not enforcing any of the legislation that's on the books. So, which we saw today, Hunter Biden's gun charge.
Yeah, I know.
Is going to be dropped, basically. So, we're doing a lot in that aspect as well.
Yeah. I'm going to get to what we talked about before the show, at the end of the show, about the election. But I do want to talk to you about what you just mentioned about Hunter Biden. This was one of the reasons I want to bring you on tonight. I almost wrecked my car coming home today from a Father's Day visit with my kids. When I saw the story pop up, it popped up early this morning, breaking news that he was going to be charged federally for tax charges and the gun charge. And even in every news story that I read, not one of them said that he was going to get nothing more than a slap on the wrist. And I predict, I do not believe he will see the inside of a jail cell. If me and you did the things that he did, Jen, we would be 10 feet under. We'd probably be serving 6 months to 10 years. There's no telling how long they would put on our sentence for doing the very thing that he did. it's a two-tier justice system. I'm not even sure if it's not a two-tier. I think we've reached 4 tiers at this point. I don't even know what you get with this justice system anymore. But I do want to ask you your opinion about this, and it's a simple question. It's an easy answer. You and I both know if Don Jr. would have done this same thing, or Eric would have done this same thing, or Ivanka would have done this same thing, or Jared Kushner would have done this same thing, the outcry from the media would have been covering every news outlet in America tonight. Every news story would lead with it. They would be calling for 10 to 20 years imprisonment. They'd be calling the Trump family a bunch of criminals, a bunch of crooks. And nobody, even on the right-wing media, is saying anything negative tonight about how this ties to the President of the United States. I think it's disgustingly perverted with our justice system. And that's Chris's opinion. I'll let you chime in on this. But the gun charge is a joke. And you and I both know there ain't going to be nothing laid at his feet about that gun, because that is the one I thought was going to carry the bigger teeth. What say you, buddy?
Well, actually, by law and the Ashcroft mandate or doctrine, and then the Holder doctrine actually require the Department of Justice to hold the defendant accountable for the most the biggest charge, basically, to put it in layman's terms so that everybody can understand, that they have enough evidence to prosecute. And they had by far enough. I mean, he lied on the application.
Yes.
And he knew he was lying. So not only that, but once he obtained the gun illegally, knowing that he was addicted to crack cocaine at the time that he lied on that application, Joe Biden's daughter-in-law, and at the time I believe it was Hunter Biden's girlfriend and brother's widow, right?
Correct.
Hallie,
yes.
Is that his widow? It's hard
yes.
to keep track with all,
yes.
know, everything. But baby mama and strippers, and it's just, I don't pay attention anymore. It's like watching the Kardashians.
That is true.
But so Hallie actually took that gun and then threw it, illegally disposed of it, threw it on top of a dumpster right near a school, which is also illegal. I mean, they put these children near that school in
great danger.
So here are the Democrats, right, that are all about gun legislation and talking about school shootings, and the Republicans are horrible because all you care about is guns, and meanwhile kids are dying, and then we're just going to sweep this under the rug because what? Because his last name is Biden. I mean, it's garbage. It's complete garbage. It's complete hypocrisy. And meanwhile, they also try to claim to be, Joe Biden is all for the minority community and he wants to elevate black people. But how many black men are sitting in jail right now because of what Hunter Biden, for the same exact charges that Hunter Biden is facing on a state level and a federal level for 10 years?
That's right. That's exactly right. Do you think he sees any jail time?
No, he's not. He's not. Based on this deal, unless there are other charges that come from this, he's not going to see jail time from this. They're putting him in a diversion program for the gun charge, so that's actually going to go away completely if he doesn't get in trouble or test positive for drugs within 2 years. But I don't understand. Diversion programs are for people that actually need help.
Come on, buddy.
At that moment in time.
Come on.
Hunter Biden doesn't need. He's been sober apparently for a very long time. So what kind of diversion program are they going to put him in? I mean, he like I said, they endangered children. They endangered the public. They put everybody in grave danger by their actions, and he needs to be held accountable. He doesn't need a diversion program. He needs to know that there are consequences for his actions, whether you're a Biden or a Trump.
Do you think this whistleblower on the Hill is going to make any difference to this IRS whistleblower that was up there today speaking to Congress and basically claiming a lot of things, a lot of bad things, cover up, pressure not to prosecute him? I mean, the tax thing is a joke, and you and I both know, too, again, under different circumstances, any of us, what he did would be facing not just civil penalties, but they would be facing serious criminal charges.
Right. They put a 70-year-old man in jail. Donald Trump's CFO.
Yes.
They put Rikers Island for not claiming, fringe benefits, basically, like his leased vehicle. He didn't claim on his tax returns. It threw him in Rikers Island, and now they're letting Hunter Biden get away with a slap on the wrist. So, yes, it's complete selective prosecution. It's a sweetheart deal. It's complete hypocrisy. This is not the way that our country is supposed to work. There's supposed to be an equal application of the justice system across the board, and that's not what's happening here. I don't know if the whistleblower is going to make a difference, Chris, to be honest with you, because we've seen, it's hopefully everything's coming to a head now, and everybody's culminating, and we're going to see something. But I think unless Congress has something in one day or even an hour where they play the recordings, they have the whistleblowers testify, like everybody has to just come together in one point. Like, we can't have any more delays, because we keep promises of this happening and then that happening, and we have a whistleblower, we have recordings, we have this, and then we never hear from these people, or we never hear the recordings. So I think they need to lay it all on the table, and they need to do it soon.
Yeah. This is a weird question. You're up in New York. I'm down south. I know how this is playing down south, and it ain't too good for the Bidens. But you're more in a liberal area of the country. Are people on the street outraged about this? Or they've just gotten so cynical? And I'm afraid that's what's happening out here in the public, Jim. We've just gotten so cynical that we don't even we look at this stuff, we hear this stuff. We're outraged for about 10 minutes, and then we just shrug it off, and another high-level politician's son gets off scot-free. We go our merry ways. We get thrown in jail for the same stuff. Is it playing any different up in New York than it is down here down south?
Well, I haven't really been out too much today around liberals, but I have been very active on Twitter. And I do see the tides changing a little bit. There are even liberals or moderate Democrats that are starting to say, like, well, especially in the Black community, that, like, if their son did this or they did this, they would be in jail. And
yes,
they've seen people go to jail for the same thing that Hunter Biden is getting away with. And what we're seeing right now is the epitome of white liberal privilege. So, like, Hunter Biden played the white card that they've been complaining about for years and accusing Republicans of for years. And this is exactly what he benefited from today.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm seeing the comments come in. I mean, in the chat room, there's no justice. I mean, people don't feel that there's justice, and I can't say that I blame them for that because that's how I feel tonight. I mean, again, is there any remedy for this? Where did we turn? Like if the justice system does this to Biden and lets him get off scot-free, where does the average Joe out there look at this at some point and look at what they're doing to President Trump? And look, it's not a political thing. I'm strictly talking about what they're trying to do to him legally, which is a sham. Where does the normal person out there, you think, reach that point? And I'm glad to see that Twitter is, sort of trending that way among the liberals. But do we finally wake up to the fact that this justice system is unfair and we had better take control of it? And how do we take control of it other than just voting these people out and putting people in charge of the Justice Department through elections that are going to run it right?
Right. Well, I hope that this is a huge wake-up call, because even before this, I've known from a very early age that, and everybody's always said, like, you can't fight the government. And I think when they said that, they meant the federal government.
Right.
And the truth of the matter is that it's always been in place that if the federal government wanted to go after you, or had some agenda against you, or a reason to come after you, they were going to get you. There was no fighting it. That's why you either go bankrupt fighting them, or you end up pleading guilty, because there's no fighting them, and they're going to build a case, and they're going to be able to prove that case, and that's what happens a lot of times with the federal government, unfortunately. So yeah, this has to be a huge wake-up call. We have to vote these people out of office, and we need to restore a system of checks and balances. We see it here in New York with the supermajorities. There's no, they control the governor's mansion. They control the attorney general's office, which would investigate any kind of corruption. They control the state assembly. They control the New York State Senate. They control the mayor's office. Then in New York City, they control the comptroller's office, who would have oversight of the nonprofit organizations that they're paying off. And there's no system of checks and balances whatsoever. Everybody's just running amok. It's a complete cesspool. Everything's run by a criminal enterprise. And yeah, we just have to vote these people out of office and pray that Congress and the House are able to accomplish what we need them to accomplish.
Absolutely. Speaking of the House, Jim Jordan had a guy in front of him. I don't know if this came from yesterday or today. I saw it on a town hall website, and there was a IRS guy. It wasn't town hall. It was something else. It was a conservative website, but the IRS person basically bragged to Jim Jordan. He said, we can go into anybody's house that we want to, basically alluding to the fact that they've been armed and they have been basically empowered by this dictatorship in D.C. To go and basically terrorize anybody they so desire. And my question to you is sort of multifaceted, but the bottom line is this. I thought, and maybe thought wrongly, that one of the things that McCartney fought for in this budget that they signed was the defunding of those IRS agents that Biden tried to basically fund, the arming of them, the weaponization of the IRS. That's the most scariest organization on the earth. And I don't know if that's true. I don't know. I'm reading so many different stories about that. I don't know what to believe anymore, whether they were actually defunded or not. But that statement alone is the arrogance of a dictatorship, Jen, where they have just basically thrown all rule of law out the door. They don't care if they show up at your door at 3 o'clock in the morning, busting it down, hauling you out in your underwear and claiming you're evading taxes, or claiming that they've got a reason to come in and search your home for business records and anything else. That, too, should send a chill up our backs tonight, that they feel that way, because that's what he didn't say that in some bar, basically, a few shots short of being drunk. He said that in front of Congress, to the face of the Senate committee that Jim Jordan was basically handling and chairing today. And that's very chilling. That's Gestapo, Nazi Germany stuff, my friend. Communism.
Yeah, but I mean, none of us should really be surprised, because in the beginning of our interview, you mentioned, and I hate talking about it too, or comparing, because nothing really compares, but if we don't learn from history, then it's going to repeat itself, right? So, Nazi Germany, they took the elderly in, like you mentioned first, and then they started with everybody else. And we saw that here, that Governor Cuomo and a few other, I think 5 other governors across the country turned nursing homes into death
camps. Exactly.
And then we also saw bills here in New York. An assemblyman in the city, Nick Perry, had written a bill a long time ago about concentration camps, or they were called quarantine camps. And Kathy Hochul, still to this day, we made such a stink in New York about this bill, because we were so concerned when COVID came about as to how they were going to use it, that they actually had to withdraw it after 20 years of being on numbered and on record and being able to be brought to the floor. They withdrew the bill. And then what Kathy Hochul did? Through her executive powers, once she became governor, she put that as an executive directive, that you can be quarantined for a period of 30 days without, just on their order.
Wow.
So, I mean,
wow.
We really, but so many people fought back against it, and so many, it hasn't been implemented. She hasn't been able to use it. So it is really scary. And the IRS, the 87, I'm not sure if it was a total of 87,000.
87,000, that's about right, yeah.
But I believe that they were funded through that spending bill.
Yeah.
I did speak to a couple of my friends who are pretty high up in the IRS, and they said that it actually was needed, because they haven't been able to hire people in a very long time, and they're extremely short-staffed. But what scares me is about the army. And,
yes.
And it's an overextension and an overreach of government once again, which is what they do in every way, shape, or form. Everything that the Democrats do lately is just taken to the extreme. And that's what we all have a problem with.
Can that be fixed with another administration? Can somebody come in and undo that? or at this point, see, that's what scares me with these things, Jen. You know, once they get in the stream of the country, once they look at Obamacare, Trump tried his best to get it defunded, try to get it outlawed and whatever. And once it got in the laws of the land, I mean, he took the teeth out of it, he took the penalty out of it, but it's still on the books. It's still a law of the land. And once these things get in the mainstream of our government, every day that goes by, every month that goes by, every year that goes by, it gets harder and harder and harder to reach in there and get that out, because nobody has the stomach to do it. You know where I'm going with that?
People have short memories, too.
Yes,
so
that's a good point.
Like, for something like that, you need a media campaign behind you, which the media is not going to go against Obama.
Exactly right.
And you need people to remember. And I'm sorry to see this, because I'm sure that none of your listeners are, but people are stupid. They don't pay attention to and they don't research the issues and it's not anybody's fault. Everybody's just trying to get through life the best that they can and get up and go to work and feed their kids and go to baseball or football or soccer or cheerleading or dance, whatever you go to, and just try and do the best that you can. Nobody's really, nobody wants to have to pay attention to this. Everybody, I think, for a long time trusted their government, and that even if they were doing nefarious things behind closed doors, it wasn't going to affect us the way that it is now. And I think that COVID changed all of that, and the fact that government is so big right now, people never had to pay attention to politics because it didn't affect their lives really, but now politics is really involved in every facet of our lives. Gas prices, going to the food store, feeding your family, whether you're going to buy clothes or not, where are you going to go on vacation, what books, your kids going to school. Are your kids going to be sexualized in school? That never was an issue before.
That's very true. That's very true. I want to ask you a question regarding the border. We haven't talked about the border in a while. What are your sources telling you? How bad has this border gotten? The media is not going to talk about it. I live in Tennessee, you live further north, but it affects our states respectively. We're getting an influx of illegals every day into the state. I know you are getting some up there. Are you okay with the people with Abbott shipping these illegals to these blue states? I know people get all bent out of shape about it. I'm not going to argue the validity of that. I think it sends a message. I don't know if it's ultimately helpful that they're doing it, but it does send a message to the power. Your mayor, he just makes me laugh. Adams, the one at New York City, how he's all scared about these illegals coming into New York. Well, he's part of the problem. He supports the policies that are allowing them to come in from Mexico. But how does this play in New York with the influx of these illegals up north?
So actually, I don't know if anybody remembers, but Rob Astorino, who ran for governor in the Republican primary against Lee Zeldin, he lost, but he actually was exposing this, I think before that race even really started, so in 2021, I think. And right around when he started talking about it, even at my local supermarket, which I'm about 60 miles away from Westchester, where Rob is, I would notice about 20 new people, and I'm a regular at my supermarket. I know all the cashiers, and I know all the faces and whatnot. I pay attention to a lot of people in my surroundings from being a survivor of a homicide victim, and you start to pay attention to people. And I would notice that there would be about 20 new faces on a Saturday, all at once, just roaming down the aisles, not having never been there before, and picking up the boxes and staring at the boxes, you could tell that they were trying to figure out what they were looking at. And I started contacting my local elected officials and asking, is there any way that we could find out what's happening, because they're here. They're coming here. So how many new enrollments do we have in school? How many new enrollments do we have in social services? How many new rental applications do we have? What exactly is going on? And nobody could get any kind of answer. So it's been happening even in the suburbs for a longer time than it's been happening in New York City. But now New York City can't handle it. New York City residents are extremely upset that they can't get the services that they need. That they were putting them up in school gyms while their children were in school. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. It's unsustainable. It has been for quite some time. And the fact that Eric Adams and the Democrats want to call out the Republicans for shipping them here when they're the ones that implemented sanctuary policies.
Come on.
I mean, even if these people rape a child, ICE can't come in and deport them because of the sanctuary policies. So, but then Eric Adams and the other Democrats want to ship them off from New York City into Republican-controlled areas of New York State. They're being sued.
It's hilarious. Well, I have to say, the funniest thing that happened over this last year was when, I don't know if it was DeSantis or Abbott won, but when they shipped those illegals to Martha's Vineyard, to watch all those really snobby rich people up there react to the about 100 or 200 illegals that showed up on those boats was priceless. And, I have to tell you, it was worth the popcorn down south. We were just laughing about it down here. It probably wasn't so funny up there in New England. But I just thought it was hilarious that these rich snobs that made these laws, they got a little bit of their own medicine. And see, Jen, what you've been saying tonight, this is what drives me nuts. And this is exactly what drives me and you nuts. They can dish this crap out. They can push these sanctuary city policies. They can push these abhorrent laws. They can disregard the rule of law for their own and charge everybody else with crimes and go after sham crimes against ex-presidents and do everything else. They can do all that and dish it out. But when it's turned on them and they get a taste of their own medicine, they don't like this liberal blank hole that they have created in America. They don't like the taste of the turd. They don't like the taste and the smell of the turd that they've created when they have to smell it and taste it themselves. And I think that's what we need as Americans need to realize. They need to taste and feel their own medicine. I got no problem with what Abbott did. I got no problem with what DeSantis did. I think they need to do it even more and give these liberal politicians a taste of their own medicine and smoke up Johnny, because they need to smoke up.
It's so funny because when DeSantis sent them to Martha's Vineyard, it was off season. So the running joke is now that maybe Eric Adams should send them to Martha's Vineyard because everybody, it's big season now and everybody would hire them. They need nannies for their kids and the housekeepers and landscapers and whatnot. And that's all that they see these people as being good for. So I'm sure that they would have no problem keeping them now as opposed to when, in the wintertime, in the off season, when all of their mansions were available and they could have housed everybody, probably the entire population that they're sending to New York of 47, actually 60,000 people. They won't do it now, though.
Yeah. Folks, you're watching a very special live McFiles late night Tuesday night special. I'm sorry, I'm not quite at Thursday yet. We're grateful to have my dear friend, sweet friend, Jennifer Harrison. I've always loved her being on the show. She started being on our show about a year ago, and there's never been a show yet that we've not enjoyed her. Tonight's no different, doing good stuff, talking about some good stuff. We're going to take a few questions for her. One question's already popped up tonight. Where's Al Sharpton in all this? I thought Sharpton would be out there raising hell in the streets about all this, being that the unequitable law practices against black folks. Al should be the biggest one holding the sign up, put Hunter away for life, don't you think?
Of course not, because he's a Biden Democrat, and Biden lines his pockets. They're all in bed with each other, and Al Sharpton is super busy causing hate and divide over Jordan Neely and Daniel Penny, who had to intervene to save people on the subway. And speaking of that, actually, in Al Sharpton, where's his outrage regarding all the subway slashings that we had in the past couple of days? So don't get me started on Al Sharpton. I don't know who sent that question, but we could get a lot of trouble. The F-bomb might drop a lot. I think that your viewers would like what I have to say about him.
Well, I'll tell you what we'll do. Next time you come on, we'll put a beeper. I'll get a beeper, and then you can say it. Beep, 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 beep. I'll go get me I saw one of those at Staples. My brother sent me one of those one night. It was a little red thing that had staples on it. You hit it, it makes a sound. So I'll try to see if I can find that next time you're on. So
if any of your viewers are on Twitter, make sure you follow me at Victims Rights NY, because I go after Al Sharpton all the time. It's quite fun to watch.
Well, I think that you brought up something, and I want you to go back to Daniel Penny before we go to this final subject tonight. a lot of people don't know the Daniel Penny story. Can you give us a 5-minute capsule of what happened there? Because that's another victim that is being so maliciously prosecuted for something that basically was self-defense, Jen. He was just trying to save lives on the subway, and he's the one paying the price for that, not the individual that was the threat to life. Tell everybody what happened there in New York.
So we can't talk about Daniel Penny without talking about Jordan Neely first and how we got here, right? Because that's really the major question. And a lot of conservatives actually get mad at me because I'm a little bit in the middle on this. Jordan Neely, when he was, I think, 14 years old, his mother was murdered by her boyfriend or his stepfather. I'm not sure if they were married or not. Jordan Neely went to school when he was 14 years old. He tried to go say goodbye to his mother, who was in like a locked room. The stepfather wouldn't let him in there. She either was dead or was missing at that point. Jordan Neely never saw his mother again. She was stuffed in a bag and thrown in the Hudson River.
Wow.
I'm not sure when he was 14. He never got the help that he needed to really come back from that. I'm not sure that anybody, my boyfriend was murdered in 2005. I'm not whole. I was an adult when that happened, and I know how traumatizing that was for me. I can't imagine what he went through to lose his mom. So that being said, Jordan Neely never got the help that he needed. He did turn into a career criminal, either because of his emotional issues or whatever it was. He was homeless from time to time. His family did try to get him help, but in New York and as many other places, it's extremely hard to get anybody with mental health issues, severe mental health issues, long-term care and supervised care that they need. So he was arrested 44 times. He attempted to kidnap a little girl who was 7 years old. He assaulted a 75-year-old woman, I believe it was. He broke her orbital bone. So he broke her eye socket. He wasn't a sweet guy. And you would think that after the second arrest or the third arrest or the 35th arrest, or even if after the 44th arrest, that they had gotten him the help that he needed. If he was either institutionalized or in jail where he belonged, then he would still be alive one day. But after the 44th arrest, quite some time after, he got on a train in Manhattan, and apparently he seemed as if he was on drugs. He was acting very erratic. He was threatening people, and Daniel Penny, who was a Marine, stepped in because he felt that Jordan Neely was going to do physical harm to other people on the train. So he stepped in, he put him in some kind of chokehold that he was trained to do. He claims that he was monitoring his breathing, that he was looking at his chest going up and down, and Jordan Neely ended up dying. This was only in between stops. And now Daniel Penny is being prosecuted. At first he wasn't going to be. There were no charges. The DA's office actually released him, and then because Al Sharpton, everybody's BFF, unless you're white, started protesting and making an issue out of this. Yeah. And now he's being prosecuted.
Do you think there's any hope that is reversed? Is there anybody in New York that can step in and stop that?
Thomas Kniff is actually his attorney who ran against the current DA, Alvin Bragg.
Yes.
I worked with Thomas Kniff on his campaign. He became a close friend of mine. Very competent. He's been a public defender. He's been a prosecutor. He's actually in the National Guard, so he knows what it's like to serve our country. And I'm very confident in his skills. And he seems confident. It was kind of a setback that he was indicted by the grand jury, but apparently that was to be expected. And we're hoping that when all the evidence comes out in front of a jury full of subway riders who are dealing with the same things day in, day out, that this will all go away. Good deal. And there will be the verdict.
Did I hear you right that Bragg brought this crap?
Alvin Bragg is the prosecutor.
Oh,
yes.
For God's sake. Good. So he's got his hand in a lot of crap up in New York, don't he?
Oh, yeah. It's horrible. We campaigned very hard against him, but the New York politics is really, really hard and complicated, and even people that are Republicans aren't necessarily Republicans because they all have business interests, and they know that it's a Democrat-controlled state and a Democrat-controlled city, so they have to play nice with the other side too. So it's very hard to make changes here.
Yeah. Well, I hadn't asked you this question. I will, because I hadn't seen you since all this happened. Your opinion, and you're entitled to whatever you want to say about this. The case against Trump with the porn star, political or legitimate?
Well, so like you said, we haven't seen each other. I haven't been on since this happened, but I actually testified at the Victims of Violent Crime judiciary hearing with Jim Jordan in New York City regarding Alvin Bragg's dereliction of duty. And I absolutely feel that it was political because Alvin Bragg is telling victims, I'm a victims advocate for over 18 years. That's how I got involved in the Victims' Rights PAC and Victims' Rights Reform Council nonprofit. And I have victims calling me on a daily basis that are completely distraught because Alvin Bragg's office is telling them that they don't have the resources to prosecute their cases, and they have to plea out very violent offenses to, nonviolent crimes and misdemeanors, and these people are getting out with a slap on the wrist, or that their cases are being dropped altogether, or that they don't have the resources for, victims for counseling and whatnot that they're supposed to be providing. So it 150% was political. Everything that Alvin Bragg does is political. I think, I forget the exact numbers and they probably changed by now, but I think 51% of the felonies that came to his office were dropped to misdemeanors. And then he had around a 50% conviction rate for any of the, so not only are the cases being dropped, but then only half of them are even winning in court, and then he's also, dropping the charges altogether. So, wow, complete incompetence, complete politics, and this is what happens when you elect a George Soros funded.
I know, buddy. It is frustrating. Doesn't it just frustrate you? The only thing I can liken this to, there was a movie back in '91, and I don't want to name the movie, but Denzel Washington played a prosecutor, and he wound up needing a defense attorney later in the movie. But there was a scene in the movie when he was basically being confronted with the defense's sham defense of a criminal that was clearly guilty of what he did. But I think this works on both sides of the aisle. But he made a statement. He said that we go outside today and we just want to breathe in the fresh air, and we just want to feel that justice is being done. We don't care, that lady Justice Jen, she's blind. There's a reason why that symbol has got a blindfold on her, because it shouldn't matter whether you're white, black, Asian, Hispanic, male, female, rich, poor. That's why justice is blind. It's supposed to be the same all across the board.
Right. And
he made the statement. He said, we just want to breathe again because we can't breathe right now. We feel suffocated. And I guarantee you, out of the 100 or so people that are in this audience tonight live with us, and more that will be on replay, if I ask that question tonight, do you feel that? I guarantee you a majority of the people feel suffocated by this lack of justice across the board, that they hear these stories, they hear what you just said. We've talked about the Trump sham. We've talked about Jim Jordan's situation with the IRS, talked about Hunter Biden's sham. You feel suffocated. It stinks. It just feels dirty to me. This whole thing feels dirty. When I hear these stories, I feel dirty. I want to take a bath. And I can't, because one story ends and then 10 more come down the pike. And then we don't feel there's any justice, and it suffocates us to the core. And it feels ugly down here in the South. Does it feel the same way to you?
Well, unfortunately, and I hate to put it this way, because I have empathy for what everybody's going through now, but this is what I've been dealing with and why I do what I do. This is what I learned at 27 years old, is that justice isn't blind, and it depends on what prosecutor you have. It depends on what defense attorney you have. It depends on what judge you have hearing your case. Sometimes it does depend on the color of your skin. Whether you're white or like the people that killed Kevin, the three brothers that killed Kevin. Kevin was white, my boyfriend of 6 years. The three brothers that killed him were Hispanic. They were Latin kings, and nobody cared about us. They got all of the rights and the resources. And they basically got off. And then there are some black people, some Hispanic people are prosecuted unjustly. So unfortunately, it's not fine. blind, and we do live in a broken system. But what's happening is that nobody that's in office is addressing the real issues that need to be addressed, and it's just one extreme to the other, and until we get these extremists out of office, basically on the far left, we're not going to be able to make Lady Justice blind and fix the issues that really need to be fixed to make our country great the way that it's supposed to be.
Very true, hon. We're going to take questions in just a second. I do have to ask you one thing, and you can word this however you want to word it. We were talking about the elections before we came on, and you were a Trump surrogate. I want to, in all transparency to our audience, you were a Trump surrogate back in 2020 and that time that he ran. You said something to me, and I found it very intriguing, and I'm not even going to say I disagree with it, because I believe I can understand where your frustration lies tonight. But would you mind sharing what you said to me about Trump and why you're having a problem supporting him this time in the primary? Because he's a good man, Jen. I believe he's got the right intentions. I believe he does. But when he says things like he said about Cuomo, it hurts people like you and the people of New York because of what happened with this nursing home thing. And I'm not even saying DeSantis is the issue or the choice, but saying things like this, he's losing support, and he needs to be careful how he works things. Tell everybody what you told me, because I feel like people need to hear this. Now, I want to just tell the audience before you start talking, folks, we're not trying to tell you how to vote or who to vote for. This is our opinions. Me and Jen have a right to our opinions, and you need to respect that as she's talking. Tell everybody what you felt about this.
Yeah, and I'm not bashing President Trump.
I know you're not.
I have a very close relationship with a lot of people that still work for him. So there's no animosity whatsoever. But as you mentioned, in 2020, I was a Trump surrogate, and I was invited to speak at the Republican National Convention, which didn't work out for logistical reasons. And instead I filmed an ad because I lost two people in the nursing home. My step-grandmother and her sister, who were national treasures. They were Long Island's Homefront sisters, Long Island's Josie the Riveter, because she put the bolts in the plane that helped win World War II. And they died 2 days apart because of Governor Cuomo's death sentence on March 25th that became infamous. So I worked very closely with a lot of other well-known people that were involved in, bringing attention and trying to get accountability for that. We ended up filming an ad for Donald Trump, and then, he lost and whatnot, and I knew that he was going to run again. And then, everything with COVID, I just took a step back, and, I knew that Anthony Fauci shouldn't have been trusted because of the way that he handled the AIDS epidemic. And, anybody that watched the Dallas Buyers Club with Matthew McConaughey would know that. But then once, I didn't even know that Anthony Fauci was still in power, to be honest with you, until COVID surfaced and hit us. And then I researched Fauci and the AIDS epidemic again, because I just wanted to make sure that I was, not losing it. And I found a letter from the Village Voice that had been written to him during the AIDS epidemic. So there was a lot of information out there, and there were a lot of people that knew that Anthony Fauci shouldn't have been trusted. So that made me doubt a little bit early on. And then, we elected Donald Trump to drain the swamp.
Absolutely.
And not allow people like Anthony Fauci to control our lives, during a crisis, and put the country on lockdown and make us unable to feed our families and not have our kids go to school and have our national treasures die alone and afraid in nursing homes. So I was upset about the way that he handled that, and I understand why he listened to the people that he listened to, because I feel like, as soon as COVID hit, the media came out right away. Anthony Fauci's a god. Anthony Fauci this. So President Trump probably felt immense pressure that if he fired Anthony Fauci, everybody was gonna
blame him.
Him right away, right? But I think that we elected him to realize that it was a no-win situation no matter what, So he should have done, what we elected him to do and fired Anthony Fauci and put his own people in office and gone with his gut about what was happening and handled the pandemic a little bit differently. It's extremely hard because it was a no-win situation. No matter what, he would have been damned if he did and damned if he didn't.
Exactly
So
right. I'll totally agree. I get you.
I get that too, but he didn't have to leave us vulnerable in the process of that, and he did. And then recently, he made a statement that a lot of people have heard that Andrew Cuomo did a better job of handling the pandemic than Ron DeSantis, and that was unforgivable, to be honest with you.
Well, to somebody in your shoes, go ahead.
The reason that it's unforgivable is because we went to Donald Trump. Donald Trump didn't come to us. This wasn't a political thing. We went to him because we needed help. We kept going above the chain and above the chain and above the chain because nobody was listening and we had no accountability. There was no checks and balances like I talked about before. So we went to Donald Trump because he was our only hope. And when he would come out and say, Andrew Cuomo, and, there were investigations, we had hope. And for him to come out and say that, knowing what our families had been through, because we knew that he knew. I know that he knows what our families have been through and why we needed him. So for him to do that, it kind of, I don't know if there's any way back.
I think statements like that are hurting him. I do. I'm with you 1,000%, my friend. And look, from your standpoint, any New Yorker who lost loved ones in that nursing home debacle and that killing, it was a genocide to me. It was a nursing home genocide. What they did to those elderly people, Jen, is what's unforgivable to me too.
It's not just that. Like, it's not just my family because of that. I'm a single mom and I worked in the hospitality industry and I couldn't work for a very long time.
Yeah.
There were a lot of, there are a lot of moms who are nurses that lost their jobs and pensions and retirement, their whole life's work because of vaccine mandates and because of Governor Cuomo. So for him to say that is just, and there are a lot of people in New York that supported him throughout the pandemic.
Wow.
So for him to say that is a slap in the face, not only to me who went through a tragedy that he knew about, but for every New Yorker that he was the only hope, like, to fight for our freedom. I
got you, buddy. Folks, if you got a question for Jen, we got about 10 more minutes. We appreciate her coming on tonight on this Tuesday night. It's been good stuff, man. I appreciate you saying the things you said. You've always been a warrior for victims' rights. Corey Aguilar saw your testimony in front of Jim Jordan, and she gives you kudos tonight. She says, I saw that. She said it was awesome. And so we're grateful. We got Canada listening in tonight. Grateful Canada's in the house. Down Under's in the house. We got Cleo, one of our moderators. So you talking to an Australian and some Canadians tonight. So good to have our international audience in the house as well.
I hope they pay attention to Miranda Devine too.
Yeah, Miranda Devine. Somebody mentioned Miranda Devine. That's good about Miranda. If you got a question for her, folks, I'm going to read some of your comments. If you got any comments, Patriot says there's no justice anymore. Both sides are compromised. I agree with that. Carolyn Harvey is saying, I'm in New York, and I'm praying about all this tonight. I'm believing that. Folks, if you got a question.
Well, it's important that Carolyn follows my pages, the Victims' Rights New York PAC pages, because the New York State Legislature just passed clean slate, and we're trying to get Kathy Hochul to not sign it. So every day on my Twitter page, I post an example of a child abuser, somebody that killed a child that was convicted of manslaughter, that will get a clean slate, and somebody that tortured an animal that will get a clean slate if Kathy Hochul signs it. So please follow my Twitter page, follow the Victims' Rights New York PAC page on Facebook, and all that information is posted, and please share it with your friends.
How sick are New Yorkers of Hochul?
I think New Yorkers were sick of Hochul before the election. I think they wanted to vote against her, but Lee Zeldin, because of Donald Trump and abortion, just wasn't the answer for them. But I think that it's even worse now because now she doesn't have an election, and she's just doing whatever she's running with it.
Yeah.
And it's bad. It's really bad. We're gonna have to live through an endless nightmare for at least 3 more years.
3 more years, exactly. She'll be there till 2026. My next question has to do with this. Who's on the horizon on the Republican side that can bring New York back out of this abyss, if anybody?
He's gonna kill me for saying this, but actually, a Democrat that I adore is Sheriff Toulon, who's the Suffolk County sheriff who I've been asking to run for governor for a while, but he said that he won't. He just is happy here in Suffolk County. Other than that, I haven't really heard too much talk about who's next yet. We have a while. So
do you is it a fair statement? I've asked the other people from New York this question. I'll ask you. Is a fair statement that out in the countryside, like you get out of New York City, you get out of that one big population hub, that New York in general, I'm not saying it's a majority, but in general, is it conservative red, not blue?
Yes, most of New York is red. The reason I've been focusing a lot more on Twitter and New York City politics is because they really decide what happens across the state. I actually, during the last couple of days of session, there was a committee hearing on, I think, vaccine mandates in the Public Health Committee. And I noticed that at least 10 of the members of that one committee were from the New York City area. And I actually want legislation introduced to have geographical representation, because not one area and one viewpoint should be represented so much in one committee. How is that democracy in any way, shape, or form?
It's not, buddy.
Yeah.
Got a good question for you out of Facebook tonight. Corey Aguilar's on the ball. She's on fire tonight. She says, Durham is testifying tomorrow. What is your opinion on that? Do you have any hope anything substantive, if I can say that word without choking on my tongue, is going to come out of that testimony tomorrow on the Hill with John Durham?
I don't, unfortunately, and I wish that I was more optimistic, but like I said earlier, I think unless they have like 1-2 punches back to back and they release those recordings and extremely damning, irrefutable evidence, that they're just going to make an excuse, and nobody's mind is going to be changed either way. Like everybody on the right is going to feel the way that they feel, and everybody on the left is going to feel the way that they feel. I do feel like the Hunter Biden deal and him actually pleading guilty is changing the minds of some people, and I feel like them being lenient on that gun charge, which was the most damning charge, is going to hurt them within the Black community.
Does it hurt Joe Biden? Does it hurt his daddy?
Yeah, that gun charge and the leniency in that gun charge is going to hurt him tremendously.
Do you think
not because it's a reflection of Joe Biden, that Joe Biden committed that crime, but the fact that his administration is being lenient on a white guy when they're talking about gun legislation and supposedly trying to help the Black community, and people are sitting in jail for, Black fathers and brothers are sitting in jail for 10 years for the same thing. I think it's going to be damning.
Yeah. This may be unrelated to not what I'm about to ask you, but in a way it's not, because it has to do with this very narrative about the crime family. What was your opinion? Because again, we hadn't talked in a while. This $50 million, at first it was $10 million, $5 million apiece for the big guy and the little guy. Now it's up to $30 million. And now I'm hearing some rumblings that there was as much as $50 million passed, but we know at least 10. 30, according to John, Bauer, the senator, I can't think of his name tonight. The senator's investigating it, James Comer. Yeah. When you heard this about the Bidens, do you think there's any teeth to the Ukraine Burisma bribe that's going to carry any weight more than this gun charge? Maybe the gun charge is just a beginning of many dominoes to fall. Is there a possibility we're going to get anything meat out of this little investigation?
I don't think, we've been hearing this since the 2016 election with Hillary and Biden and over and over, and nothing has ever come into fruition. So unless they have extremely damning, irrefutable evidence that everybody can say, or the majority of people will say, and independent thinkers and voters will say, oh my God, I can't look the other way anymore.
Yeah.
Then no. And it has to be hardcore evidence.
Gotcha.
Like those recordings. The people need to hear those recordings.
Dennis Boyd says the same is true for Illinois. If we could get rid of Cook County, He said Illinois would be red. I tend to agree with that. I think a lot of states would be like that, Jen. I think these metropolitan cities are just, they've gotten so corrupt. But you get out of the country, you've got some jam up, solid people, good American loving, tax paying, law abiding citizens that just want to live their lives free of government and stop the government telling them what to do, when to take a doo-doo, when to eat, when to sleep. Just leave us alone. Let us live our lives. That's all we care about out here in middle America. That's all we care about down south. We just want to be able to live. Don't be telling us what to do. But these metropolitan cities are becoming so corrupt. That is such a good point. I don't disagree with Dennis. I believe he's right.
He is, and I actually was invited to an event at the Manhattan Institute the other night that I wasn't able to attend, but it was actually about Chicago politics in the last election. So I haven't even been able to watch it yet, but they sent me that link, so I'll post it in the comments for him.
Yeah, that'd be good. Listen, I've never seen YouTube so quiet. They've been listening to you tonight. Usually my YouTube channel is going nuts. Unless they're scared of the bear man. Now, that could be it, too. They're scared that McDonald will come down on them with both feet if they misbehave out there. Usually I'd have questions, but they've been listening to you tonight, and I've been listening to you, too.
I am who I am. I'm honest. I'm genuine, and I can take all of the feedback, negative or positive. So
that's
if you don't be afraid to say it. I'm a big girl. I can take it. And if you follow me on Twitter, I dish it out.
Look, that's why I love you on the show, because I know you're a big girl, and I know that you can take the heat. That's why we're good friends, because the McDonald man here can take the heat too. I've been at this for a while. Hey, buddy, listen, I'm going to give you about 2 minutes. Wrap us up. Final thoughts tonight. Thank you for coming tonight. It was good stuff. Good discussion, and I learned a little bit talking to you, as I always do, little things about the things that are going on. Is there anything on your heart that really we need to be knowing about, being aware about, that's going on with your Victims' Right Reform Council? Any cases, anything that we can help, pray about and think about? Because I know that you come across a lot of stuff that maybe we may not hear unless we bring Jennifer Harrison on the McFiles, but we need to know about. Anything like that before we wrap it up tonight?
Well, unfortunately, a lot of the things that I deal with on a daily basis are victim-based and really, really horrific stories. It's taken a toll on me since Clean Slate passed, because, like I said, every day I've been posting an example of a child that's been killed, that their killer is going to get a clean slate and pretend that it never happened, or an animal abuser. Today, actually, I posted about someone that put her lesbian ex-lover's kitten in the oven to get revenge, and then left because she didn't want to hear the scratching on the oven door. So what I do is not easy, and I appreciate people like you having me on the show to come and talk about it and let everybody know what's happening. Clean Slate is not isolated to New York. It's being proposed and voted on across the country, and it's horrific. So I need everybody to pay attention to that. Everybody across the country, let your state representatives know that you're totally against Clean Slate initiatives. Otherwise, these people can be working in your homes, around your children, and around your pets, with you completely unknowing what they're capable of. And, I'm looking forward to working with the Victims' Rights Reform Council and doing a lot of great things, not just to help victims, but to prevent victimization across the country. So if you, unfortunately, money talks, and I know that everybody's always asking for money, but we really do need your help, because we're fighting against the other side has George Soros with billions of dollars, and they have John Arnold. Google him. He's behind the Arnold Ventures, the Brennan Vera Institute, bail reform. Mike Bloomberg just put $36 million into anti-gun legislation. So the other side is extremely well funded, and we don't have anybody like me that's funded on our side pushing conservative values and calling them out on their hypocrisy and their complete garbage, which is what I do best. I'm very effective at it, but I need an army, and I need money to build that army. So if you can go to the Victims' Rights Reform Council.org and even donate $1.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm grateful you said that, and I encourage our people to do that tonight. And a lot of New Yorkers, we have a lot of New York listeners up there, and for the McFiles in the New England area. So if you're up in that area, please get behind Jen. Jen, I cannot tell you thank you enough. It's always a pleasure. I'll have you back on soon, dear. And I hope you, if I don't see you before the 4th of July, happy 4th. and stay out of trouble, for goodness sake. Don't make me come up there and
fun.
don't make me come up there and get you out of jail for some,
We don't go to jail in New York anymore.
No, that's true. That's true. And I've got your back. And look, you're always welcome here. You got an open format, and I'll say it to you publicly. I appreciate what you're doing, fighting for these victims. You know that I'm a phone call away. If something pops up and you need something out there quickly, you've got safe harbor right here to come on and say whatever you want to say, and I appreciate your candidness. And I guess that's why I've always enjoyed talking to you, because I like people like you that are real, and I think that the country needs a lot more of you, because I think we've had this milksop crap, politician milquetoast stuff so long. We've gotten such used to this diet of that when somebody comes talking truth to us and just straight up talking to us, we don't know how to handle it, and we better stop being a bunch of wussies and listen to what people are saying, because we're losing our country. I mean, we're losing our freaking country.
We are, and you know what? They want us divided. If you think about everything that they're doing is to divide us. Nobody was talking about transgender or drag queens or racism, really. And now we're all fighting with each other.
That's exactly right.
When the majority of people that I talk to really don't care about any of this stuff. So they want us divided, they want us distracted, because they have an agenda, and we cannot let them win. So keep talking to each other, keep loving each other, don't get distracted, and they're not going to win. I believe in God. I believe that love and good and God will always win over evil. So on this 4th of July weekend, don't forget that.
We need freedom, but I will say this about the transgender agenda. Same people behind that are behind this other stuff, because they're attacking our kids. I got no problem with letting them be, but bringing it into my arena, my grand unions. Chris McDonald stops being tolerant.
But Chris, listen, I know drag queens. I like going to drag queen bingo we have on Fire Island. It's like one of the funnest things in the world to go to. But it's all adults, and most of them feel the same way. There's a force of people that are pushing this on us because they have an agenda and because they want us divided. And you could not support transgender, you could not support drag queens, but they're pushing this on us for a reason, and don't let them win.
Friend, thank you so much. Listen, you have a blessed night. Thank you again. And victimsrightscouncil.org and
Victims Rights Reform Council.
Reform Council. Don't forget the reform. McDonald misses the website. I got it right in front of me and I still miss it. So sorry about that. Victims Reform. Let me get it. Victimsreformcouncil.org. Yeah.
Victims Rights Reform Council.
I got the website wrong. Let me put that in there. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
I'm from the South, Harrison, so give me a break here. So, okay, there we go. Hey, buddy, thank you again and for your opinion tonight, and I'll see you soon. God bless, friend.
Okay.
Jennifer Harrison, everybody, put some fire in that house for her. We appreciate her coming on tonight, and I'm going to come back over here and say goodnight to you. And hang on just a second. That's Fetterman, the one that didn't know that I-95 was a highway. He thought it was a restaurant. That was from our McFoolery Friday night. Did you enjoy Jen? I did. I always enjoy her. She's got a good spirit to her. And folks, understand, I know a lot of you Trump supporters out there, and Jen's entitled to her opinion. And I was talking to her, and I'm glad she said what she said, honestly. I think we need to chew on that. I can understand why New Yorkers would be upset about that statement, about what he made about Cuomo being a better governor than DeSantis with the pandemic. Cuomo was not a better governor than DeSantis. Cuomo killed people. Cuomo killed elderly people. There was nothing good about Andrew Cuomo. There's nothing good about him tonight. He should be in federal prison for the murder of every elderly person in New York that died in those nursing homes. He should have been charged for capital murder. That's how I feel about it, and that's my opinion. So, no, there was nothing good about Andrew Cuomo, and no, he did not do a better job than Ron DeSantis, and Donald Trump was flat out wrong saying it. And now, whether that changes my vote for Donald Trump, I guess that's for me to know and you to find out later. But it speaks to something, and she alluded to this tonight, folks. And look, whether you like Trump, hate Trump, in the middle, or whatever, I've said this to you on this show, and I have said this to you. You can't remove the swamp by bringing swamp with you. I heard him do an interview just a few days ago, and I don't know, we put it in the Telegram room, and I'm going to let you go here. It's 10:15 here in a minute. A real minute, not a McDonald minute. 20 minutes, 1,500 minutes later. I saw him, and he said something, and he made a comment. He said, we hired some pretty good people during my administration. We did hire some good people. There were some people that didn't work out. And I called baloney on that. I called something else. No, you didn't. No, you didn't. There's not one of those hires that he put around him, folks, that wound up being true to him. Most of those people he hired, he's either turned on them or they've turned on him and stabbed him so many times up the back you can't see straight. That's not a good hire, Mr. Trump. Just ain't. And again, I'm not saying this, as Jennifer said, we're not bashing Trump here. People are freaking out. I can almost tell, oh my God, Chris is bashing Trump. No, Chris ain't bashing Trump. But I'm just speaking truth to you tonight. Things you need to think about. And this is his biggest problem. He cannot get past this ego of his that he does no wrong. A little humility would go a long way. A little humility to go to that camera and say, I made some mistakes. I made the mistake of bringing swamp around me. I made a mistake putting a spiritual advisory board around me that was leading me into paths that led me into hell itself and are still leading me into that same hell tonight. Just a little bit of humility, just a little bit, would go a long way. As of tonight, he's got my support. But I listened to what Jen Harrison said intently tonight, and I hope you did too. Comments like that are not helping him. Hanging around with so-called revival movements where people are telling you you're going to be fighting artificial intelligent mermaids. And his sons are attending that and lauding that and appearing on shows with people like that. It's not helping. And folks, you can get upset with me. We're losing people anyway. Might as well get my money's worth about it. If I'm going to go down, might as well go down swinging, right? But I'm going to tell you this, folks. These things ain't helping. And Mario Cuomo or Andrew Cuomo or whatever his name was not a better governor than Governor DeSantis in Florida. I actually like Ron DeSantis. I do. I don't prefer him as far as being president. I think he's done a heck of a job in Florida. And I'm going to say it again tonight as I close. You can sit on your keister. You can sit on your keister and not vote and say, well, I can't trust Trump. I can't trust DeSantis. I can't trust this one. I can't trust this one. Look around, folks. Your country's up in flames tonight. Your country's on fire. It's burning to the ground. So you take your conspiracy thinking and your Q tinfoil and stick it on your head, and you sit at home and don't vote. That's what some of you are going to do. I just had the clip up with John Fetterman. That's a lot of what happened in Pennsylvania. I know there was FARUD. I'm not denying that. There was a lot of that. But I think a lot of it was, and we don't want to admit this, that people didn't like Oz for the same reason, because God forbid Oz thought something and he had a weird view on one thing out of 100, but you put a paraplegic in his place, and you basically that can't even tell you that I-95 in his own state is a highway. But God forbid we can't have Oz running the state. God forbid. You better take a good listen. You better chew on what she was saying tonight, folks. That's the sentiment. A little humility will go a long way. And that's one thing Trump don't have. And that's what worries me about him. He don't have any of that, because he's got people around him that have no humility. And you can't drain the swamp with the swamp. He says he's learned his lesson. We will see. But my statement to you tonight, if he didn't do it the first time around, there's no guarantee he'll do it the second time around. So pray hard. Pray hard. As of tonight, he's got my support. I'm not bashing him. I'm not trying to bash him. But I think we better come to grips with some things and some realities and some truths that we better stop smoking the reefer that we're smoking like we are out there about these politics. and to come to grips with the state of our country and the state of our politics, which is toxic tonight. On both sides of the aisle. Patriot said it tonight. Both sides have been compromised. Both. And you're in the middle of it. And I'm in the middle of it. It's not good. A little humility will go a long way. And I'll leave it at that till Thursday night. Tomorrow night's Faith Night. We'll have our Wednesday night midweek fellowship at 8 o'clock. We misspoke last night. There will be no Faith Chat tomorrow night. And so just ignore everything I said at the end of last night's show. That was a misstep, a misspeak. And but I will be here tomorrow night with our Faith fellowship. Now, we may have a guest tomorrow night if I so desire, but as of right now, no Faith Chat, but a Faith fellowship. And then Thursday night, we're going to hit you, double punch you with two jam-up guests. Amy Frazier. Amy's been on our show 4 years ago. I actually spoke to her class at the Rio Grande Valley College twice, 2 or 3 times, and had the privilege of speaking to her students via Zoom. And she was the one that introduced us to Wayne Jett. She is going to be our guest for the first time in a long time. I'm so grateful to have her. And she's got a new book out called Witchcraft in Texas. Barua. I can't even pronounce it. I'm going to have to let her pronounce it. And I wanted her, she's going to come talk to you about that Thursday night at 8 o'clock. You don't want to miss this. That is going to be there. And then Ron Edwards is going to be on late. I think I'm going to have to put him a little bit higher because I think we've got Amy on at 9. We got them two coming. I'll just leave it at that. We got Amy and Ron back to back. So it's going to be a double header back to back. I'll still get you in bed by 11. Trust me. So it's going to be a late night Thursday, double header night. Be with us then. And listen, I'm grateful. I am grateful that you've been with me tonight. And listen, I love you. Thank you for being with us tonight. Thank you, Jennifer Harrison. Good stuff tonight. I appreciate her candidness. I do, folks. Look, she's fighting the fight. And you folks in New York should be proud of what she's doing to help the victims up there in that area of crime. Because she herself was a victim of crime, and she's fighting the fight for you. God bless you. God bless your families. God bless this great nation of America. I will see you again tomorrow night at 8 o'clock Eastern for our Wednesday midweek fellowship. And until then, McDonald out on this Tuesday night, the 20th day. Speaking of that, I almost forgot. Happy birthday. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Joe Rowan. Joe had so many candles on that cake that the Alabama Crimson Tide sent the whole football team to blow it out. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, young man. He's one of our moderators. Turns 37 today. Those were the days. Oh, to turn the clock back to then and have the brain I got tonight. At least some of it. Happy birthday, Joe. Love you guys. I'll see ya. I'll see you tomorrow night when I see you. Did you enjoy the show? Put some fire in that house. Good night, everybody.
you.